Here. So hey everyone, it's Nicole Snow. I'm the founder and CEO of Darn Good Yarn, which is my favorite company ever. And if you just want to mute out, Theresa, so we don't get feedback, that's cool.
That's
super. So yeah, welcome back to Wind Down Wednesday. This is our opportunity here to interview the people that come in contact with our small business who design for us and just other small businesses, most specifically like women business owners who are balancing a lot of stuff in their lives, from working and doing the side hustle, having maybe a business or a side hustle, and then managing all the other hats that women just traditionally have. I know as a woman who has, started her business, I've run Darn Good Yarn now for 10 years, and it's been not only the growth of the business, which has been amazing, but it's also been this evolution in how I've contorted around other people's lives around me, and sometimes good and sometimes bad. I think that there's value that I'm hoping to provide to our listeners that can help us move the needle along in terms of progress and women owning their businesses successfully. So with that, I want to thank Theresa for coming on today. Theresa I'm going to have you actually talk through all of your shops and where you're selling and what you're doing as a business person. But your handle is Tegan and Lou, and we'll put that in the show notes for people to follow. And I love following you on Instagram. Sometimes I don't make the connection when I see something on paper and not on my Instagram feed. I'm like, oh yeah, I love your stuff so much.
I know that person. Yeah, that's the best part about having your fingers in so many different things. It feels like you're constantly in a state of surprise and shock.
Exactly. And so Theresa, you have 20 years, for our listeners, you have 20 years of total experience knitting and crocheting. You also, you've done a couple of projects for us here at Darn Good Yarn, including the Whimsical Winter wall hanging, which I'm going to tell you, when I saw that, I was like, we've had other projects made with that yarn, so I don't want to diss on other designers, but when I saw that, I was like, that is the perfect use for that yarn. I am in love with it. And then you're working on a Halloween bunting for us as well, right?
Yes, yeah. And I have to say, when I got that yarn, I opened it and it was like audible gasp, like, ooh, it's just something I have never seen before. So that was easy to work with because it's fantastic. I mentioned that I was probably going to have to do something embarrassing, and I'm going to just open the door for the puppy right now because she's out there going, let me in.
That's perfect. So while you do that, I'm going to talk about our giveaway. So Theresa will be right back. If you guys can hear us too, we just want to make sure our audio is set up. Can you just give us a like or comment or something that you can hear us, okay? That's always really helpful because Erica's just doing her thing over here. So we're going to do a giveaway like we did not last week. I'm sorry we missed last week. Our guest actually wasn't able to make it right before she had an emergency, so I apologize for that. Maybe in the future what I'll do is take some of your questions of things you'd like to know about me, and maybe we'll just do a quick filming so we can still engage with everyone, because I enjoy this so much. So the giveaway this week is going to actually be one of the wall hangings that you designed. We're going to do a kit. What everyone needs to do, though, is go onto our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DGYarn, and comment on our on this show right now, and say, what would you make with our felt ball yarn? So after I just said that whole thing about, this is my favorite project ever. You can't use wall hanging. It has to be anything but a wall hanging. You can't use it, but it's already been used.
It's so fun.
So, and Theresa, do you have any wine today, or is it am I just drinking alone?
I'm hitting the coffee pretty hard because there is still a lot of momming left to do in my day.
So, I appreciate that. These guys help me get set up, and I've learned through doing a couple of shows now that I just need to make sure I eat something prior to, so that it doesn't just look like Nicole's getting drunk progressively through the half hour, because that happens on because I always
but I love that this is exactly the middle of the week, and something like this is so needed for me to just sit down. And how often as moms and business owners are we sitting? That doesn't happen. during the
No,
day.
it's funny. I have my sparkly Sperry's on because these are the only shoes that can keep up with me in my office because I am running all day. Like I have these fancy shoes, they don't get warm. I got my sparkly.
Oh yeah.
All right, so talk to me a little bit, Theresa. Like, so our listeners, some of them who like maybe are just tuning in for the first time, tell me a little bit about yourself and like, and more importantly, what's your daily juggle like? I don't want to call it a struggle, but it's just what's your daily juggle?
Sometimes it's a struggle, but I try to keep it on the juggle side. So I'm a mom. I am a former high school teacher, but ever since I had my kids, I work at the public library in our town as a technical librarian part-time. And so I do that. I've got 2 kiddos running around, 2 dogs. And then this fun little side gig that I decided to really start taking seriously like last November, and which is called Tegan and Lou. And I've just been, grinding pretty hard trying to bring fun stuff to people. I've focused more closely on designing patterns, but I do a couple markets throughout the fall and winter seasons too.
So can I interrupt you? So this is what I do. This is why we're here, right? But how many hours a week?
We're gonna go on break because I do that too. See?
How many hours a week do you think you dedicate to your business? I think people would be really interested to know that.
Oh, it's a lot. I don't want to be the poster child for insomniacs, but I don't sleep well. So that's when I do my work, and it actually felt super great. Oh goodness. So I work at the library part-time, and it's about 20 hours a week. And then, for Tegan and Lou, I mean, I'm probably logging between making and designing and, doing photos and, doing some, other like press stuff along the way, and promos. It's upwards of 30 hours a week, but a good portion of that, like a really good portion of those 30 hours are me sitting down after a long, long day and playing with yarn, which I love. So I can't really call it work.
That's cool. It's funny about the insomnia thing is that I have a 2-year-old as well. And, I don't sleep really well. Like I get to like 3 o'clock and I'm sort of shocked in my system because I've been nursing her forever. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay.
That is exactly what I say has happened. I slept great before I nursed 2 children constantly.
Yeah. And now you're like, okay,
and now my body's like, we don't need that sleep thing as much.
Who needs a boob? Who needs a boob? And then you wake up and then you're up though, like you're legit up. And so what I've actually, I just get up now. Like I don't fight it unless I really need to sleep. But I actually get up and I have outside of my bedroom like a place where I sit and I read and I actually start my business stuff because it's amazing when you're not getting disturbed, like how much work you can really cram into like 30 minutes or an hour or something like that and just getting that time for yourself. So that's an interesting, I like that. I'm glad I'm not the only person. So I'll think of you next time at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Feel free to message me then because here I am.
Right? So let's talk about like, you said you do some fairs and markets, like talk to me about like your channels. How are you choosing those fairs and what do you do? Like maybe 3 or 4 a year or what does that tempo look like for you?
So this is actually my first year of doing like established juried shows. So I'm pretty much a newbie at that. Beforehand, I was joining in on a lot of events that friends were throwing with direct sales and things. So
that's a great idea.
Like women's direct sale party, and do you want to come and bring some of your stuff and see if that works out? So that sort of got me interested in doing markets and stuff. So this year I'm only doing 2.
Okay. Theresa, I've actually never heard of anyone doing that. And I think that's an awesome way for people, versus getting in the car and loading or the van even and loading things up for a weekend. You go, it's in a nice environment and it's sort of like a trusted group of people. And then you're done in a couple of hours.
Totally. And then, and the whole vibe of it is just like more often than not, most of the people, it's just trying to support other people who are trying to, do the same thing that you are, like do something you love and make ends meet if that works out that way. And yeah, those are fun little events.
So you, and like in terms of being a newbie, Erica was telling me right before we came on here that like you're almost officially like 1 year in business from when you filed, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I have been crafting. You mentioned this earlier, but I didn't elaborate on it. So I've been crafting since I was like a little kid. I had a lot of nervous energy as a child. I don't know if you can tell.
No, I can't. You seem really skilled.
Yarn works. So my mom and actually my aunt kind of picked up on like that I was just always picking things up and wanting to make things out of things. And they were like, well, let's do something about this, which is super great because I'm a fourth child. And in a lot of other areas, it was like fourth child, go do whatever you want. But my mom and aunt noticed that, and they found people that were yarn crafters and set up little meet and greets with me when I was, there's some debate about this, either 7 or 8, and taught me how to crochet first and then next, and I've done it my whole life. But then I really didn't take it that seriously until my kids were born, and I just needed like some mama me time.
So let me ask you about like the mom part of this, because I'm a couple of Wind Down Wednesdays ago, we had questions about like what years do you think it's a good practice to really introduce your kids to fiber art crafts? Like, are you doing any of this with your 2 and 5-year-olds, or like what are your thoughts on that?
Well, they make me so stinking proud because I mean, they're surrounded by yarn all the time. So, but they love it. So my daughter, I made her a little frame for weaving. Mm-hmm. So she's 5, and we started doing that maybe a year ago, where I set up a weaving frame for her and give her some yarn threaded on blunt needles, and she can create like her fun little weavings, and she's actually super good at it.
That's awesome. So what did you do? Did you use like cardboard, or did you buy like a dedicated weaving board?
So I have like an actual weaving board for myself. So I was working on something and she was like, I want to do that too. So I grabbed a shoebox lid and cut some slits in it. It was like very makeshift, but it's actually lasted for about a year. So I haven't bought her another one yet, but
that's it. I love that stuff so much. So and you know, it's funny, we actually talked about weaving as being like the entry, the gateway drug. I probably shouldn't be saying that. But yeah, it's the gateway craft, because the kids, I think they learn tension and like what yarns and how yarns give and what to expect. And I feel like that's like one of the biggest issues when you're learning to knit or crochet, is going too tight and not really learning how to give the yarn space to breathe and get that tension correct,
Totally. Yeah. And my son is 2, but ever since, he was even younger than that, he just takes such an interest in what I'm doing, and he'll pick up what I'm working on and he'll just pretend to crochet or knit and be like, I am working.
Actually, so when Anna comes to the warehouse, and this is like the funniest thing, because I've gotten a lot better about like not keeping all of my projects out. If you ask my husband, I would have baskets. I don't know about you, but I would have mounds of baskets of all my whips, like all over the house. I have severe problem. Like I'll have 10 whips at once. It's like, I'm so embarrassed about that. I never.
Don't be embarrassed. Multitasking is something to be so proud of. And sometimes you need to put that thing down and pick up the other thing and just go with it. It does great things for my brain. Don't apologize for that.
Yeah, but it when you never finish anything though, I'm like, I finished one scarf in the past year. Like I have a legit problem. But when Anna comes to the warehouse here though, because she's not used to seeing all the yarn, she'll run up and down the aisles and start picking stuff out. And I was like, Don't let Amanda see that, because you're going to throw off our inventory and you're going to piss people off. Those are laughs. It's very. I'll put a video up on Instagram next time she's down.
Oh yeah, I need to see that. It just makes you so, when it's something that you're passionate about and they just pick up on it. Like, I don't feel like other than them being exposed to it, I wasn't like, Alice, you need to learn how to weave. It brings me such joy to see them seeing that it brings me joy and wanting to do it too. So
organic.
it makes me happy. But yeah, and I with the teaching and age-wise, I am teaching a crochet class in 2 weeks at the library where I work for kids.
That's awesome.
The beginning of a series, and we settled on like age 8 as like a perfect time for kids to learn, because they can be there independently in that setting, I guess.
Yeah.
That's where we landed. So,
well, okay, so this leads me in. This is a great way to reach out into your community. And I, from, knowing a little bit of your background, you've talked about community being really important to the growth of your business and kind of giving you some of your business chops and learning about that. What's been one of the, I guess, you value community and you hold it in high regard. You talked about, hooking up with your friends who are doing their own sales parties, and I think that's amazing. What else have you done as really like a 1-year-old entrepreneur to build up your business and sort of find your people?
Yeah, that community part of things has been super important to me. I grew up in Chicago, in the city, and then about 10 years ago, my husband and I moved just a couple hours south of the city, but it's a smaller college town. And that's my favorite part about it, is that you can be involved in like so many things, and it's not that hard to get to know people because there are fewer of them. And so when I first started my business, I thought primarily I'd be just making handmaids, and I started with an Etsy shop, and then pretty closely immedately after, my disdain for going to the post office kicked in, and I was like, I gotta sell locally. So there are 2 vintage and handmade stores in the neighboring town to me that are both women owned and really great places to shop, and places that I enjoyed shopping. So I just reached out to them and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you have any interest in, taking a look at some of my stuff? And so I sell in 2 places locally right now. And so, I've made some really good business contacts that way.
That's
and
awesome.
I've made some like Facebook groups that are like women in business Facebook groups just for Central Illinois where I live. And so that's helped, me build like a physical community. And then the online side of things, like most people, if they are aware of me at all, it's through Instagram. And I have met just so many fun and really encouraging people who have helped me along the way to kind of figure out, the best ways to market myself online.
Did you use any certain hashtags to find these people, or was it just sort of like browsing through what Instagram was suggesting that you might like?
So mostly it was, sort of like a combination of the two. That community over competition hashtag, that one, has some legs, and something that I, really think is important in the type of business that I'm trying to run. And but yeah, and then the other thing is on Instagram there are these things called engagement pods, and I have met a ton of people through engagement pods. So
that's cool. For some people that don't know about that, can you talk about that a little bit more?
It's sort of like the dirty little secret of Instagram, so I don't know. But yeah, basically,
let's spill the beans, because I think this would be really, I'm going to get some more wine too, but I think this would be really interesting for people because, just before the show, we were talking about building a tribe. And I think that this is a women's issue, in my opinion, that we tend to be very competitive with each other, and we try not to be. We try to be kumbaya and build each other up. But, you know, the marketing that we're given, that we're lesser than, and then you tear down your neighbor, right, to feel better than, and that whole idea of self-esteem, I think has run into the way we're running business as well. And I think we have an opportunity to do a much better job as women. And if we really understand that competition is truly a destructive force. Peter Thiel has said it. He's a co-founder of PayPal. He wrote a book called 0 to 1 that for me was transformative. It talked about how competition is exactly that. It's a destructive force. And what are you really competing against? So when you talk about this and understanding, you know, telling us about the dirty secrets of Instagram and how to create community, I think as women, we have to not be shy to be part of a tribe. I would be the first person to say, I lived under a rock for a very long time, and I didn't want to even do these sort of engaging things because I would feel too vulnerable. But it's like a muscle. And once you start to, I don't know about you, but I feel like once I start to engage a little bit, my muscle gets a little bit stronger.
That's the best way to describe it too. That's
yeah, I feel like, oh, I just want to sit on the couch. Like I'm too drained. And, you know, the introvert extrovert in me, like the introvert's like, you need to stay on the couch and recharge. But the reality is that you don't realize how much energy you're using probably mulling around these questions that you have. And you have people out there that have embraced this tribe mentality as well, that want to help. They want to help us all succeed. We live in America, and it is really a land of prosperity. We all want to help each other. So that's Nicole's philosophy hour, but tell me more about, you know, what you're doing on Instagram, because I do.
Yeah. So,
well,
I mean, it kind of started off with, I mean, I think there's no secret to the fact that social media is a fantastic way to promote your business. It's, you know, pretty much, I mean, I've done other things, and I do try to stay pretty present in my like physical community, but I mean, by and large, I do most of my marketing through social media. So I was approached by a friend who said, hey, you know, with algorithm changes both to Facebook and Instagram, you know, we kind of want to figure out a way to get seen, because that's a real thing. And that's a real hurdle to that type of marketing. So basically we like made a commitment to each other to do our very best to support each other's posts. And that can do a lot to kind of bust up the algorithm that exists that can sometimes get in your way and can make it so you're not being seen by your target audience. Well, excuse me. So in the process, so it started off as this very like formulaic, like, okay, you know, like these are the technical aspects of Instagram that are getting in your way of being seen, which that's not my field in general. I'm very lucky to have a husband who is in media and manages the social media for our local NPR affiliate. So he tells me all the things. And we're a good team in that aspect. But so it started off as just this like formulaic thing where it's like, let's support each other in good faith, but also we're really getting something out of this. We're boosting our social media engagement. Mm-hmm. But then it turned out that we're a bunch of women who are all moms, who are all like grinding really hard to try to make something happen for ourselves. And bam, friendship.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And so, and from there, you know, we've just put our heads together. And I think that a lot of the time, especially people who aren't engaged in this type of like single person business, they get really overwhelmed. Yeah. And think that, like you said, like you can't ask questions, you can't trust anybody. If you can find it. And it's, I have really found that, you know, naivete aside, the yarn community is a bunch of wonderful people.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And a lot of that like competition that I felt in other areas of my life just doesn't totally exist here. I think we're all doing like pretty similar things. And we've found out that working together is really an asset to everybody. And
Yeah.
and of my business is that like these people that I have found and consider my tribe, we're all spread out about the country. So those, we're not really competing with each other.
Yeah, and I think it's such an interesting point because I know, like, we sell pretty much all online. I used to have a retail store at Dark Yarn a couple of years ago. The mental training, I think we're sort of, old school. Like, so I was born in 82. So like there's sort of this like scarcity mindset thing where like, you have a brick and mortar and you're only lucky if you get 100 people that pass your shop every day. Right. And then maybe 2 of them will come in or something, pulling up weird numbers. But, the online community it's so expansive. So the actual competition, it's like you have to kind of turn off that old thinking that we were all brought up on, like that typical old school thinking. And, when I see what we've done as a small company, I mean, like we have 11 people now that work here. And I'm like, we've done what with how many people? Like, business school doesn't teach you that. And I went to school for that. And like, you're doing this on your own. And it's like, there's almost like this, I think this unpacking that needs to happen and like relearning how the business of the future is working. And if your commonality is moms and the hustle, I think it's so important because there's a saying that I'm sure you've heard, but like if you want to, I think Bill Gates might have said something like this, but he talked about if you want the quickest way to do a job, give it to the laziest person because they're going to figure out like the
most efficient way.
Efficient way, right? But I'm like, okay, give it to a mom. Give it to a mom who's overburdened, right? I'm going to tell you how to do something. Like I know I can clean my kitchen, unload the dishwasher, do all this in 12 minutes. You know why? I've timed myself and I'm friggin' good at it. Anyone else who goes in like 28 minutes, I'm like, TikTok. But this is the thing. I think we don't realize the power of the efficiencies that we've just worked into how we do our jobs. If we all capitalize on how we do that, right? It's like this is a whole economy that I think is just primed to bubble up even more in scale in just a larger way. And it's to me, it's so exciting. That's why these conversations are so important. Did you just spill your coffee?
Nope. My tripod broke.
You jinxed yourself, Theresa.
I called it. There would be something. Look at that. I'm fixing it. There's a hair tie involved.
This is amazing. So right before we got on, I was telling Theresa I was on a webinar a couple of months ago with my friend from high school, but she has a successful coaching business now. Deanna Dance.
Did it again.
You got this, girl. You fix it. I got this. So, and I was joking. It was a webinar about perfection and not pursuing perfection. It's like the evil of a lot of people, and it holds you back from really what you're meant to do on this earth. And we're in the middle of this, and I dump coffee all over myself, all over the floor. And I just kind of pretend originally like nothing happened. I'm like, you know what? Time out. I'm like, I just dumped all this all over me. And in the pursuit of non-perfection, this is what it is. And then Theresa, you're like, I'm going to mess this up. And I'm like, no, you're not. And then your tripod breaks. So here we are. But while you get that fixed, let's announce our winner. So our winner this week is Lori Sim Peters. So congratulations, Lori. So
yay, Lori.
And we'll get you set up with your mailing address and get you set up with your kit so you can get that. Oh, yeah, that's right. I've totally forgot to announce that. Thank you. So if you're watching this after the live show, don't worry. You can win as well. You just comment now. So all the other comments from here on, you'll get entered in. Tell us what you would do and what you would make with the whimsical winter wall hanging, and comment in on the show comments, and we'll pick someone and I'll announce that next week, or we'll DM you. Something like that. Yeah. We'll get in contact with you. Don't worry. We're always good on that stuff. Okay, so let's I have a couple more questions. We're a little bit over our time, but if you're game for maybe 5 more minutes, I'm game too. Does that sound good?
Totally.
Right, cool. So I want to ask you, like, I know the creative process is it's difficult, especially when you're multitasking. I think it's even more difficult. Like, who or what are your inspirations to get your juices like revved up? Because it's difficult on the day-to-day running a business and then having to perform creatively,
Well, to be appropriately sappy and then also totally on what we were talking about before. um, so when I had kids, I fully intended to continue working full time. I was going to continue being a teacher. It was really important to me to make sure that my kids were proud of me for not just being their mom, for doing something else that is important in some way. And things don't go to plan. My daughter had colic. She couldn't be left with anybody, so I couldn't work full time. It just wasn't going to work out. So the short answer is that like I have found pieces of me through my kids that inspire me. And just like having a goal that, and I mean, that's like one portion of where my inspiration comes from. Because I have a ton of people in my life who are just wonderful and creative and really supportive. But I would say like my primary draw is that, I get inspired by wanting to do things that make them proud.
Theresa, I think that's one of the most beautiful things I've heard. Like you're sitting here saying, you're being taxed, juggling a ton, and you're finding that as your character unfolds through all these different roles and like where they could be seen as a detriment in some cases, by typical societal standards, you're like, man, these are enhancers, and it's made you a more multidimensional person, and that's been your own inspiration. Like that's one of the most badass, awesome, beautiful things I've ever heard, honestly.
Well, thanks. That's amazing. Living the truth over here. There's, but what makes that possible too, of course, is the people that are that I get to surround myself with. My husband is fantastically supportive, and his parents, my parents, are just all on this weird, crazy train that I've decided to start running. And they inspire me to keep going too, because they've been so supportive of helping me figure it out. Like right now, my daughter's getting out of kindergarten, and every day I'm there to pick her up. But today, her dad left work early, so I could do this.
Oh, and so well, thanks, Dad. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Great. So actually, I have a question from someone who's watching right now, and the question is, how do you organize? We're going to change gears right now. So, how do you organize writing patterns?
What do you mean? Like, how do I organize them?
So, Katie, do you have any other insight, like with the organizing of patterns, like in terms of like when Theresa is actually writing a pattern and editing it?
We can ask Amber.
Okay. Yeah, Amber, if you can give us a little bit more insight to what you mean by that, that would be awesome. So when you're coming up with a pattern, though, maybe I can like figure this out while we sit here. But when you're sitting down to write a pattern, like what does that process look like for you? Like, for me, I actually just dive in and I like will rip and tear and then rewrite. How do you dive into that process?
It happens in so many different ways. One of my more popular recent patterns is this really simple, like winter ear warmer that I released for free. And the first one I ever made was, again, I just made it for my daughter because she wouldn't wear hats. So my whole aesthetic is very much focused on, like functional beauty. So I think I'm just like a problem solver by nature. And so most of what I design ends up being like, oh, I need something for this. And then I kind of try to sit down and figure out a solution to it. So, but then other times, I mean, like we were talking about before, the wall hanging, that I did for Darn Good Yarn, that yarn came to me and I was like, I know what I'm going to do with this. This is fantastic.
It speaks to you.
Yes. My superpower, yarn speaks to me. I may be crazy.
No, I don't think so at all. Do we have other questions? No.
Oh, Amber is asking, is making the pattern look and sound cohesive?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you say it again?
Yeah, she's just asking how to make your pattern look and sound cohesive, so making sure it's thorough. Any tips on that sort of tip?
So the question I think is around how do you make the pattern cohesive? Is that how do you make it cohesive aesthetically? I'm guessing, and then
Writing steps clearly.
and then writing the steps clearly. Does that just come with experience?
Yeah, you know, and I think for me, I spent a lot of time making things from other people's patterns and working in a library and being something of a book nerd too. I've just absorbed a lot of the ways that you can express things in a pattern and have it make sense. I have a teaching background, so that part kind of, you know,
absolutely
easy to me. But yeah, it's, I like to, even if there are plenty of things that I make that I don't feel are on brand for me, and then I won't do anything with them. You know, it'll be like a nice experiment in making something, but I don't have to, I try not to force things that don't feel like they're me. So for the patterns that are out there are many more that did not get published because I just didn't feel like they were me.
All right. No, that makes sense. We have a lot of questions this time. This is great. So I think this will be our last question. Then I'm going to have my very last question, which we're kind of doing now. But when you release a pattern for free or paid, how do you know it hasn't been done before?
This has actually come up in our community a lot recently.
Okay.
And I mean, you have to do the best that you can to sort of vet it out and make sure that you're doing something that that's authentic to you, and also that doesn't look exactly like what someone else has already done. Personally, like brass tacks, I spend a ton of time on Ravelry and on Pinterest. And I, when I'm creating like a listing for something, either on Etsy or Ravelry, the tags that I've created to promote the pattern or to have people find it, I search through a lot and just try to do my due diligence to make sure that what I'm creating is as original as it can be. And there's a sort of a refrain in the yarn community where it's like, there are only so many stitches, there are only so many combinations. So, there's a lot of like similarity that kind of abounds, and trends are a thing, but I think if you make a good concerted effort to look around and see what's out there, you can feel pretty confident deciding what you're going to publish and what you're not.
I think that's excellent advice. All right, and this is I'm liking to end our Wind Down Wednesdays. This has been really awesome. And when we end here, I'll still stay on with you. But what's the best advice that you've ever been given, either professionally or personally?
I get a lot of advice. I am really lucky to have. I think like life advice is always what sticks, because your business is always changing, and you're always going to approach things in new and different ways. But so when I was a kid, my mom used to always tell us if something bad happened to us or something was making us sad, she would always say, well, okay, so you know how that feels. And that's all she'd have to say. And with the implication that like your main responsibility is to be a good person.
Yeah.
Not hurt other people. So that's more overreaching, and it can be applied to business for certain, especially it can be applied to community. But that's sort of I would consider that like the wisest advice I've ever gotten. So shout out to my mom, Laura, for
our moms, right? Holler to them. No, I think I think
You
that's
need to be a good mom when you've had like the best mom.
That's so wonderful. That's great. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. You know, I just want to do two other like sort of national shout outs here. We had, you know, I don't mean to end it on a sad note or anything, but our hearts go out to our neighbors over here in Schoharie. We actually like had some, that was a very tragic accident that happened. And we have people that are directly affected that work here at the company that knew a lot of the people there. And then those affected by Hurricane Michael, just stay safe and just keep listening to the directions from the government, please. Amazingly, they are here to keep us safe. But yeah, just stay safe. And yeah, and next week we'll be here. And then Friday, we're actually going to be doing our live Facebook event like we've done for the past 2 weeks. This was our flash sale for our sari skirts. We're going to still announce the time, but we're going to be doing it from a special location because I'm going on a quick vacation. But you see, I'm doing it in Darn Good Yarn style, Theresa. So I don't do too many like just Nicole vacations. I have to bring the entourage, which is Amanda and Kerry, so we can actually still do work. So we're going to be in Bermuda. We got a humongous hotel room.
You know what? I would problem solve in Bermuda in a second.
That's what they said too, and I'm like, you know what? We've been busting our butts. We had a humongous warehouse move, and so we're going to.
Yeah, congratulations on that. I heard about that.
Yeah, it was 12,000 square feet. It's pretty crazy. Maybe we'll do an Instagram live here later today or tomorrow, and we'll walk. Oh, we'll do it today because I'm going to be leaving. I'll do a walkthrough real quick of the warehouse. If anyone's interested, hop onto Instagram in like 5 minutes, and I'll walk through the warehouse if anyone wants to see what we're doing there. And it'll post in our story too for 24 hours. But because I'm proud, we've done a lot of work back there. But yeah, we needed like a timeout, but we're going to bring skirts with us to Bermuda so we can do this live event so we can stay consistent and check some luggage. And then we'll ship them as soon as we get back on Monday. But Theresa, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add? We'll put all of your handles up so people can follow you. But is there anything else?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me here. This is so fun.
Yeah, this is great. I was really awesome getting to know you better, and I know our listeners and everyone watching right now. This is a fun time, and thank you everyone for giving us your questions as well. And we look forward to next week. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us here at Darn Good Yarn for Wind Down Wednesday. See you later. Bye.